Good afternoon. I'm Jennifer today. I am the College and Career Coordinator for Windsor High School, and I'm going to be moderating with my speaker today. Um, our session is called Finding a Job, and we are here with Danny Chaparro. He's from Social Advocates for Youth, and he's going to tell us a little bit more about, you know, how he would suggest youth, high school students in particular, go about the job search. He's going to have a presentation to show, and then he'll also have some further information. We have disabled the chat for today's presentation, but please put any questions into the Q&A, and as we go along, Danny can answer them. And definitely at the end of his presentation, we'll have some more time for Q&A. So I'd like to bring on Danny and thank him for one thing for being here, and also just to help he can give us a little bit of a background of himself before he gets right into his presentation. So Danny, take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer, and also Melanie for taking in all the questions. Feel free to stop me at any point during this presentation. As Jennifer said, my name is Danny Chaparro. I'm from Social Advocates for Youth, SAY for short, and I'm from the Career Services Department. Before we get started, I'm just thankful that I'm able to give this presentation just because coming from someone that applied to like an American Eagle or a Zoomies when I was younger and I didn't get the jobs, and knowing where I am now, I'm pretty thankful to be able to present this and actually give you advice and give you some tips on, how to go about searching for a job and how to get one and how to keep one. A little bit of background about myself, just so I don't get too much into it. I've been a case manager for about 5 years now for SAY. I've worked with youth for the majority of all my jobs. So I just enjoy serving youth because, me myself, I know I wasn't the best high school student, growing up, but as I developed, I understood what support looked like and what support meant to me. And, that's what I want to provide to everybody else. So once again, thank you for having me. So let's get right into it. As I mentioned before, my name is Daniel Chaparro. I'm the bilingual case manager at SAY in the Career Services Department. As a case manager, I support you with mentoring and career coaching. This could include personal support, job search, interview prep, job retention, scholarship, and life skills on a long-term basis. Typically, I've been, serving my clients for a year, but since I've been at SAY, I've served some clients for almost 4 years now. So it is a longer process when you're working with a case manager. We're also going to be having workshops for anybody that's actually interested in working over the summer. We're going to have summer internship opportunities that you could actually get connected with a work experience coordinator to join these workshops starting May 17th. We're going to be starting these workshops that are going to get you a slot either into a summer internship opportunity, or we can assist you finding jobs during the summer. Barry Gutierrez is actually our work experience coordinator at SAY. And as a work experience coordinator, she can help you develop job skills, explore careers through workshops, and summer job opportunities. Now, if you don't want to work with me on a long-term basis, having a case manager, or maybe you're not really looking for anything this summer, you could always schedule a drop-in time with Dawn Montgomery. She's our career service specialist at our Dream Center hub. For those who are not familiar where the Dream Center is, if you're familiar with Montgomery High School, it's located near Hohen and Summerfield. You could always just reach out or ask Melanie in the question box, and then I can provide more information after this presentation as well. But if you Google Dream Center SAY, you'll find it. Her contact information is right there on the presentation. You could always reach out to her if you're only looking for like just building a resume, or if you're looking for a quick job search. Like once again, if it's something that you don't want long term and you just want it quick, Dawn can definitely help you in the Career Hub at SAY. So the real reason why I think everyone's here for this presentation is job searching, right? And I wanted to provide a checklist when job searching. Hopefully everyone at the end of this presentation or even before it started has the Word document that contains this checklist so you can carry it with you. But I'm gonna go over all of these things that you see listed here on this checklist one by one in detail. But for now, I'm just gonna reference them. But one thing that we're gonna talk about is photo ID, things that you need, the work documents, the photo ID, the birth certificate, social security, or even a passport. We're gonna talk about work permits, resumes, what those look like, even a resume template that I'll show you. We're going to talk about cover letters, interview questions that you need to practice for and what they look like, references, what a reference letter is, online applications, your standard job applications, where to even search for jobs, and then also just talking about time management when, applying for jobs. And then lastly, these last two things, transportation and following up. Once again, we'll go through all these in detail, but hopefully you could either take a picture of this just as a reference to keep as a checklist when job searching. So, I was hoping I could engage with all of you, but maybe Melanie, if you have this in the chat box, if I can get one question answered or this answered, who has had a job before? If I don't know if we can make this work where someone can answer and maybe list the job that they worked or any type of work experience. Is that possible, Melanie?
Yeah, if they type it into the Q&A section, then I can read it out loud to you.
Yeah, if anyone would like to just answer this, we only need maybe one answer. And if we have two, then that'd be great. But who has had a job before?
So there's a couple. Someone has said that they've had 2 jobs before. One person has worked at Emerja Gardens Nursery, working at a manufacturer fan company, full-time caretaker and babysitter. Oasis Laundry Cleaning Company. A couple other people saying that they've had one. Grocery stores.
Wow. Okay, so that's perfect. Grocery store. I heard babysitting, other fancy titles. Those are all
babysitting.
Yeah, so that's great. Thank you for everybody that answered this question, because it's important to understand, who has that job. Maybe some of you haven't, and this is why you're here. Or maybe you're looking for another job and you're trying to figure out, how to get there. So what do you need to get a job? Some of the things that we had listed from the checklist, I'm bringing them up here, and we're going to dive right into the hiring documents, because that's definitely one of the most important things that you need in order to start your job search, because it basically allows you to start the application process. But once again, we're going to be talking about the soft skills, the hard skills, what are those, what a cover letter is, resume, and how you put job experience on those resumes, and then just good interview etiquette. So right off the bat, we talked about the hiring documents, what they are. For some of you, you either know what they look like or you don't, but this is when we're talking about your student ID, because it has a photo ID, or your California ID. There's also other IDs based off, your residency. If you have a permanent residency card, or if your ID looks like anyone's on the screen that you see here with my mouse. Sorry, I was like pointing with my hands. Or also a school transcript. A school transcript will help, because a lot of the times they do have your photo ID and have your information that they can get off that. But then you're also going to want to follow it up with a birth certificate or a social security card. For those who aren't familiar with it, this is a very important document right here, the social security card, because it verifies who you are. And one thing that I've noticed is that for a lot of people that never use the social security, maybe your parents have it at home stashed away somewhere in a very safe spot, and maybe you haven't even signed your name yet. When you have a social security card and you're turning it in to the place that you're applying, you want to make sure that it is signed, obviously by you, so it can confirm who you are. I don't have the passport here. Melanie, if you want to stop me at any time, just in case. I just hear the sound, so I don't want to interrupt you from interrupting me, so don't worry about it. But yeah, the passport is not on here, but the passport could actually verify you for, as one whole hiring document, because it has your photo ID and it has all your other important information on it. So this is what I'm talking about when we're talking about hiring documents. Definitely one of the first things that you need when job searching. Next, we want to move on to work permit. For those who have had a job while going to school and you've gotten a work permit, you should be familiar with this document right here. But this is a document that you can find either at your school business office or the main office if you ask when you have a job and you need that work permit. But one thing about the work permit is that you must have a minimum GPA of 2.0 to obtain a work permit. There is times where work permits have been issued for youth that are below a 2.0, but this can be served as a provisional work permit, but hopefully that will encourage you to, up your grades. So the next time you ask for a work permit, once you need it renewed, it can be given to you with no problem. For those people that are working two jobs, for instance, if you're working at Target in yogurt time, you will need one permit for each employer. So you're going to have to fill out this document for each employer that you're applying to. As you can see, I don't know if it's clear for everybody that's watching, but the top is basic information from you, your school information, and then obviously if you are under 18, you're going to need your parents' signature, and then followed by the employer who will actually fill that out. And then I believe the bottom part will be for the school. I will get into further detail about, what the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday section there looks like as far as hours in which you're able to work while going to school as we move forward. So,
there is a question regarding summer jobs, and since you were touching on permits, I thought maybe this can kind of help answer. The question is, when applying for a summer job, what happens when summer's over?
When summer's over, so it depends, right? So if you're working, if you're trying to get a job in the summer, you still have to try to get a work permit from the school. But when summer's over, a lot of the times you'll have to renew your work permit. I don't know if this is going to answer the question for the person that asked, but a lot of times your work permit only lasts a few months. So it's just always good to be cautious of when it's over, so then you can renew your work permit and then continue working. It was that helpful at all? I don't know if we wanted to be more specific on that.
I think that's good.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for the questions. I definitely like it, makes the presentation run smoother. So for what a resume looks like, this is a resume template. I'm assuming everyone's in high school and that's what this is for. So I put education at the top, but as you can see where it says full name, that's the biggest thing on this document, because your name and your contact information should always be listed at the top. You want this because whoever's looking at this document, they want to know who they're referring to or whose is it, and it wants to be clear that all the information's there. Then I started off with education because I'm assuming also that many of you either don't have that much experience, don't have any experience at all, and are hesitant of what you're going to put on your resume. So to make it easier, you know that you can start off by at least putting your high school name, when you started, and when you're expected to graduate. Also, any relevant coursework. And by that, I mean, a lot of times people put math, and maybe they're in a high level math class, and, they think that's relevant to the work that they're about to apply to. That's great. Other people are more hands-on and they'll do like a welding class. They'll add an art class as far as creativity, anything that you can speak on, when you get into the interview process, referring back to your resume is a great spot to put it right here, is in the relevant coursework. And then obviously you got the work experience and the volunteer experience. This is where you definitely want to highlight any work experience that you've ever had. For those who threw in babysitting, or working with any relatives, this is a great opportunity to write it in these sections. I know for many of you, you might think, well, how do I write babysitting, and how do I title it? Think about it the same way as if the company name would be, private babysitting service, things in that manner. But obviously, if you worked at, at an epicenter, a location that's known, you're obviously going to put it in the company name and the actual position title. And then obviously the day that you started and the date you ended.
And Danny, what if a student has no job experience?
Yeah, so once again, if you have no job experience, think about if you have any volunteer experience. And if, I guess, before anybody follows up with that question, is you really got to start thinking at any moment, if you ever assisted anybody with moving, outdoor work with family, all these things can be put down under work experience. And, I want to find it, rare that, at some point you didn't do anything, but there's always some type of experience that you've either been a part of, even if it's been for a day. That's something that you can put on there, because the resume, you just want to refer to when it comes down to your interview, something that you can talk about, highlight the experiences that you've done. I don't know if that helps for the person that asked the question. Just because I know sometimes we get caught up, well, it's not a real job. It's not a real job, but the work experience was there. So yeah, hopefully that would answer that question for the person who asked, Melanie. Um, but moving on to the volunteer experience, for anybody that's ever done community service or just assisted once again for a couple hours in the community, whatever you might have done as far as volunteer experiences, this is actually the best spot to put it in, because a lot of times if you're looking for your first job, the people that are hiring you value volunteer experience just because they know that you did this work necessarily on your free time, and it shows your work ethic. So volunteer experience, I mean, back in my days, I didn't understand why people would, volunteer at a Salvation Army or just out in the community. But a lot of the times they used it for that first job experience that, you can't get because you don't get hired either at an early age, or it's very difficult to find a job. And then as we move down the list, you got internships, high school activities, very important. If you're on any club or sports team at school, this is a great spot to put it in as well, because they want to see, are you engaged with other activities outside of just, work? Are you engaged in other things? So do you develop teamwork skills, leadership skills? This is a great spot to highlight those things if you are part of a sports team, a club team, or any leadership team at school. Then also honors and awards and skills and qualifications. Like I said, I can talk so much about resume, but I'm gonna just hold off on this last one for the skills and qualifications. If you have, bilingual skills or computer skills, this is the time to write. If you're responsible, organized, punctual, this is where you want to bullet point some of these topics, because this is where you can speak on them during your interview. But you got to make sure that everything on your resume is truthful, and you're being honest, because for instance, you don't want to say you're bilingual and then you can't, because then that will eventually make you look bad at your first job or at your job in general. So moving on, just because we have a lot to talk about today, and I'm assuming that other people might have talked about resumes, I want to just kind of give you an example of my resume. Um, I'm still updating it all the time regularly, because your resume just doesn't stop. You're always gaining experience. You're always, either getting certified, gaining new skills. But this is typically what mine looks like. Mine doesn't start with education on top, because I've had more experience, so I can, fill in the blanks a lot more in depth. But as you can see, it's still pretty much the same. But hopefully one day, your resume will look like this, and you don't even have to have that much experience to make it full, make a full page. Even with some of the experience that you have now, you can fill in some of these blanks and have a clean resume. I saw the chat box. I don't know if it's asking a question.
Not yet.
Okay, perfect. So moving on to the cover letter, and what is this? I think everybody's at least familiar with a resume, but nobody understands why a cover letter is important. A lot of times when you're applying for a job, they usually ask for a resume, and the cover letter is a lot of the times optional. But I'm here to kind of bring importance to why the cover letter brings value to when you're applying. As you can see, it's not a filled out cover letter. It's more of a rough draft that I hope that you could either like take a picture of this, or get the Word document after the presentation, or come back to it after the presentation is done. But as you can see, I made it where you can fill in the blank. Some of this, as you can see, it goes with, I currently finished blank previous place of employment or volunteer, and now I'm searching for a potential opportunity to work with blank, which is business applying to. I think this is a great rough draft of a cover letter that you can use. Obviously, feel free to make any changes when using it, but I think it's a pretty basic draft that you can use when trying to create your first cover letter. And then lastly, you want to finish it off with, your contact information and thanking them for their time and consideration. Why is a cover letter important, and why is it different to a resume? It's different because it gives you a chance to elaborate more on some of your skills and highlight some of your qualities and qualification. Whereas a resume, if you can see, it's more in a bullet point format. It's straight to the point. And then this one's a more paragraph format where the cover letter actually goes in front of the resume when you're submitting it. Obviously, that's if you're submitting it in person. But when you're submitting it online, it's just uploaded. Okay, hopefully I'm not moving too fast for everybody. I'm just trying to be cautious of the time. But when talking,
Danny, there's a question about resume. So before you move on,
yeah,
for each section in a resume, do you put the most recent experience at the top and the
yes,
most dated experience towards the bottom?
100%. Sorry, once again, just for the purpose of time, I was moving a little faster, but yes. So you always want to put the most recent work experience at the top and then move your way down. So obviously, if SAY has been my most current job, it would be at the top, as you can see. I'm listing them as 2017 and then 2013, 2015. This one went to 2016. The reason why I put this one on top is because it ended after I had the volunteer position, but you definitely want to start with the most recent and then move your way down.
And the
So,
next question is, do you need a resume and cover letter? Like, should I submit both a resume and cover letter?
oh no, for sure. I'll get into that actually right after this slide, and I'll definitely answer that question. Great question. It's coming up though.
Great.
So I'll hold that one off. But as far as the interview goes, once again, I'm not going to go into depth too much about the questions that are going to be asked because, um, you know, questions differ all the time depending on, where you're applying. Some places can just ask you, what's your time like? And you literally can tell them and they say, okay, well, you're hired. But other places will go into more depth. And these are questions that I would highly encourage everybody to start practicing ahead of time. Even practice now if you're not looking for a job. It's always good to practice interview questions because you want to, tell the person that is hiring you about yourself and you want to speak confidently about yourself. In an interview, it's all about the eye contact, the smile, the handshakes, the way you sit, your posture, your nonverbals. All of that come into play when answering this question. Tell me a little bit about yourself. That question is always asked almost 100 out of 100 times at every interview, just because that's the basic question to kind of just start getting you talking. So this is a list of popular interview questions that, once again, you can refer to when preparing yourself for a job. I highly encourage you to read through them, try to answer each of them, try to keep the answers very short, not too short and not too long, but enough where you're giving them enough information where they feel like, okay, they can move on to another question. Um, so yeah.
Are there questions, Danny, that the employer is not allowed to ask?
Oh yeah, for sure. Man, this brings me back. We have a presentation on, resumes where I touch on all this, but yes, for sure. They can't ask you on personal information such as, your political preference or religion or even age a lot of the times, or, how you identify. Um, all those type of questions, because a lot of times when you're applying in the application process, those are the questions that are being asked. Your ethnicity, if you're a citizen, if you have the proper work documents. Only in the application process is where they could really ask you those questions. But as far as personal stuff like, you know uh, your status, anything in that manner, that's definitely inappropriate. Cool.
What about handshaking?
Oh, yeah, handshaking. Like I said, in the interview process, it's all about the handshake, the eye contact. You definitely want to have a firm handshake. As soon as you walk in, you want to introduce yourself. And obviously, it's different, right? I mean, right now we're in a virtual world where maybe you're not doing so much handshakes, but what you can do is have eye contact. Make sure that you're still dressed appropriately, right? Because your appearance matters. Just having eye contact and keeping a smile is really one of the biggest tips that I can give. But yes, the handshake, when you're in person, that's the first thing you should do, and then the last thing that you should do when you walk out of an interview. One thing that I don't have here, as far as the questions that they're going to ask you, it's you asking them a question at the end of the interview. You want to make sure that you leave the interview with asking them a question. It could be anything where, what is your favorite part about this job? Or what's your role in this company? What are some challenges I might face working here? Those are things that you definitely want to ask during your interview after their questions are done asking you, or they're done asking you questions. Cool. All right. Um, Moving on to references. What are these? What's a reference? References are basically what comes after you turn in your resume, after you turn in that cover letter, after you've gone through that interview process. They're going to want to call people to ask about you. What's your work ethic like? How were you at the last place that you worked at? What qualities do you have? So this is the time where you have to ask either a coach, a school, a staff member, a teacher, professional people in your life that you can ask for a reference. So when they call them, they can speak highly about you. But you have to make sure that you provide your references with a heads up that someone's going to be calling them and asking, about you and your work ethic and your skills that make you applicable. Also, if you're already like reminding your references, make sure to kind of give them a little summarization about things that you are proud of or things that you're good at, so then they can add that when speaking about you. And then lastly, just make sure that they're up to date, make sure that the numbers are right. People that you trust, people that you know will be professional when they pick up, and also people that have time to pick up phone calls. That's what the reference part is for. And I'll get more into when they come into play. A lot of the times they either come in where you fill out the application and ask you for your top 3 references. A lot of times it's 3, or they'll just ask you to submit those after the interview process is over. But going to where to search for jobs, we already talked about the references, the interviews, and the resumes. But now, like, where are we going to apply? I know people mentioned the local grocery stores, so that's a great one if you live anywhere near one, or you go to one occasionally, or you go there every week and you see yourself working there. That's definitely a great place to start. The Santa Rosa Plaza, which is the mall. I used to go there as a kid all the time, so why not try to apply there? That's why I tried to apply at American Eagle and Zoomies, but it didn't work out for me. And maybe it was because of my, I didn't have those professional qualities, or I wasn't up to date of what they needed other than just a resume when applying. Movie theaters, Indeed.com. For those who are not familiar, this website, it's a pretty quick website where you can go in there and either upload your resume and then have automatic applies for various locations all at one time. This is a good website just to kind of start looking into what jobs are available, but you definitely still want to take your time. Also, just getting information from your career hub at school. That's a great place to start as well, because I know they provide a lot of information and resource of where you can find jobs. And then lastly, just reaching out to us at SAY and hopefully helping you with a summer internship opportunity, or just getting you a job out in the community. So these 2 things right here, I'm sorry, I'm playing with them back and forth, but the online application always looks so much simpler. Like, why wouldn't I apply online? Of course, every job most of these days are asking you to apply online, just because it's a quicker process. You can upload your cover letter and resume, as you can see right here at the bottom. You just enter your basic information, but then this will typically lead you, unfortunately, to another slide where you have to or update again your work experience and any volunteer experience and all basic information again. So I never really understand why they ask for the cover letter and resume, but I guess it's just so they have it on file. But then at the same time, they make you kind of repeat it again and fill out the blanks. But this is what a normal application would really look like if you were submitting it in person. So once again, the online application is a quicker process. It's a process that most places that are hiring look for. But then you still got your general applications that some people still use, or some establishments still use. And this is where you fill out all the information regarding your education, employment, similar to how you had it filled out in a resume. And as you can see, references are even on this document. So you'd put your references right there on this page. A lot of the times, going back to the work permit, as far as like availability, most jobs will ask you, so when are you available to work? As you can see at the top. A lot of the times, I always like to start off like, depending if you already have a job and you need to let that job go, or you want to start the following week if that's when you're available. Also, making sure that if you're in school, moving on to the time management part, if you're in school, you have to make sure that the hours that you're entering as far as availability go are after school, or maybe you're out of school early. Make sure to check that you're filling it out appropriately based off your schedule. And then one thing, as you can see, is for example, I put, let's say, Monday to Friday, 4 to 8. Also, depending on where you're applying to, you want to do your research and not put that you're available from 4 to 10. What if you're applying for like a juice shack and it closes at 7? You obviously want to know that you're aware that, okay, well, this place doesn't even close at 10, so why am I putting 10? Also, be aware of the hours that they're open till, and that will kind of help you guide, your availability of when you can work and what days you can work. Hey, and if you're flexible and you want to work morning shifts, the weekends will be a great place to ask, or a good time to ask for those morning shifts if you want to work over the weekend. But typically, as a high school student, once again, going back off your work permit, you're really only allowed up to like 20 hours, I want to say, during the week as while you're going to school. Um, so then moving on to like, okay, I could only work this many hours. I'm going to school. How could I do all of this? It's possible. Some jobs are part-time, so making sure that you're juggling school and extra activities if you're in sports, and making sure that you don't schedule your availability to work for the whole week. Be aware of what days you can and what days you can't work, and mark yourself as part-time. A lot of the times, that's what you will be when you're in school and having a job. And then lastly, having reliable transportation is important because, if you're driving yourself to this job, you want to make sure that you get out of school on time, and then you're able to make it to the job on time. And then if you're maybe getting a ride from a parent or a family member, making sure that they can take you on those days that you have to work. Maybe you're walking. Maybe the place that you're working at is right next to your school. That is when we were back in school. Making sure that you can get there on time right after. So that's why time management and transportation plays a huge role in when job searching, because you want to make sure that first off you are available and you have time for your job. Okay, so last thing I'm going to talk about uh, is following up. This is very important because a lot of the times people wonder, why am I not getting hired? I applied and I applied and I applied. I went through interviews. Why am I not getting hired? A lot of the times, jobs either are not looking to hire, they were just looking for people to apply until a month after or a month later, and you won't know this unless you follow up. So after the interview day, the best advice that I can give you is writing them a thank you note. Even either you mail it to them or you drop it off, just a thank you note saying that you're looking forward to the next steps. That's literally the interview day after, that's fine. A week and a half after, if you still haven't heard anything, or not to be very specific, a few days after, if you haven't heard anything back, this is when you want to follow up maybe with an email asking them about the next steps of the process or your application. Okay. Maybe you still haven't heard anything, and now you're wondering, well, am I even going to get this job? Maybe you even gave up. This is a reason why not to. 3 weeks after, I'm talking about 3 weeks after, if you still haven't heard anything, follow up again, but remember to restate your interest in the job and what's the status of your application. Because many times that I've heard, people are in great positions, even as adults, they're in career positions after they didn't hear back from a job even a month later. So just be aware of that. A lot of the times it's not what you did wrong in the interview, or what went wrong with your application. It's just maybe they haven't processed it yet. Maybe they haven't even chose anybody to hire yet. So just make sure to follow up. Last thing that I have on this slide is we have a social media page where we're active now. We're always posting either resources or job listings, or when the workshops are going to be for the summer. We have some workshops starting on May 17th to prepare us for the summer. We have been posting that on our social media accounts. You can follow us at SAY Careers. We don't follow you back. That's not because, we don't like you. It's just more so we understand your privacy, and maybe you're just trying to follow us for resources. You can definitely follow us on that. And if you don't have social media, you can contact me. My information is right. My contact information is on the screen. Or if not, you can contact the Career Hub, which they could also help you, look for jobs, touch up your resume, and help you with some mock interviews to actually prepare you for an interview. I'm going to use this time for, any questions. I'm sorry if I went too fast. I hope that, this worked out for everybody. But definitely open to questions now.
There still are some questions that we didn't get to, Danny. So you can start with some of those, and people can still submit them if they want.
I could also go back to any slide and we can kind of talk about that. I was just going more so on time. I didn't want to hold off anybody, but if we got time, let's go for it.
Well, there's some that were already submitted, we just didn't get to.
Okay.
Although, Jennifer, what time is it? We've
got some more time. I mean, we're a little bit over, but those that can stay on, you might get some more information or get your questions answered. So hang in there, you guys. Thank you, Danny.
All right. What if an individual does not have a social security number or card? Where do they search for jobs?
If they don't have a social security card, I mean, that could be answered in two questions. I don't know if you're a citizen or if maybe you just don't have one, but you can obtain one. If you can obtain one, there's a social security office here in Santa Rosa where a lot of times if the youth that I'm serving don't have one, we typically go there first to see if we can obtain one. But if you don't have one, those are services that we can help you look for, because unfortunately right now, I have worked with people that are undocumented, and a lot of the times I support them with stipends. So either it's a job in the community where we can pay them through some type of stipend where they're still getting paid. But once again, it's through stipend. So I don't know if that helps with that question.
The next question is, with COVID, has that changed handshaking? Do you still expect to handshake because we're in COVID?
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, I guess we all got to find that one out for ourselves, right? I think it all comes down to the level of comfort of the person that is shaking your hand, right? Like if you're meeting them, a lot of times I like to go for the handshake first just to show my respect. But I guess we're living in a time where we kind of have to read that first, right? So if you're walking into a job interview and your natural reaction is to shake your hand, you might actually break the ice right there. You might kind of go and they might be like, oh, we're not shaking hands. And they're like, oh, I guess this is where we live in right now. It might be an icebreaker for you, or they might actually make that first reaction and then you might not feel comfortable, right? So this is a perfect time, I guess, for us to find out, okay, speaking up, right? What's okay and what's not okay. So use this opportunity for a learning lesson. Actually, that's the best advice I can give for that one. In my opinion, I would still go for a handshake, but once again, it goes back to the level of comfortable, I guess how comfortable they are.
How do I keep myself from being fired?
Ooh, job retention. Look, there's many things that play a role into that. It's your attitude that plays a huge role. I know for a fact that a lot of the times that maybe I didn't get a job, but I haven't been fired, so I'm thankful for that. But I know a lot of it had to do with my attitude. A lot of the times at work, in an interview, when they look at you, they try to see if you can fit into the organization, fit into the job, fit in with other coworkers. And how you can keep a job is for sure being punctual. That's one thing I can say, is being punctual, having a great attitude at work, and taking initiative. That's not just only keeping the job, that's actually getting promoted. If you take initiative on the job site, whether it's like, doing roles that aren't necessarily yours, or helping out other team members, that goes a long way. That's really one of the biggest pieces of advice. And those are common sense. I'm not saying, be super smart or do all these other things. I'm literally just saying, be punctual, have a great attitude, and take initiative and be a team player.
Great. What should I do if a job is asking for the hours? Is putting down Friday nights and just night shifts an appropriate answer?
Yeah, so it really depends on what they're looking for. A lot of the times on a job description or a job application, or let's say a flyer or whatever the information is coming from, it'll say looking for part-time or looking for full-time. I definitely recommend being aware of that. If it says full-time, don't, most likely if you ask for only Fridays, you're not going to get that job because they're obviously looking for someone full-time. But if they're looking for part-time, I think it is appropriate to ask, like, okay, these are the certain days that I can work. At that point, then, if it fits their schedule and they liked what they saw, maybe they can work with you. But the majority of the times, try to give yourself at least, 3 days of the week, 2 days, the least. But, if it's just one Friday night, once again, it's going to depend on the job, right? Some jobs are very popular on the weekends, and maybe you're a server, at a restaurant, and they really need somebody for Friday nights. Those are going to be jobs that might take that offer.
And are parents appropriate references for your first job?
Yeah,
or
that's what,
who is a good list of references?
yeah, those are one thing that I was going to talk about. Once again, I'm thankful for this time so we can answer these questions. For the references, I know I mentioned jobs or jobs, coaches, teachers, people of that manner, but parents are a tough one just because it's kind of like a bias thing. It's like, well, I know for sure if I told my mom to speak highly about me, she will. So a lot of the times, maybe you don't know anybody. This is a perfect opportunity where you ask a teacher. And if you aren't getting that communication across, this is a perfect time to start. So I'm definitely encouraging everybody to start talking to teachers that they engage with most at schools. Use them as references because they know you best, right? They know how you participate in class. Do you answer questions? Are you speaking up? Are you taking leadership? And then, coaches or clubs, people that are supervising you there can also like speak highly about you. But yeah, try to stay away from parents the best you can, just because, having that same last name attached to the reference also kind of brings up some concerns.
All right. And I think this will be the last question just because I'm looking at the time. But does the order of the resume matter?
The order of the resume. So going back to the resume, I'm just gonna show you. One thing about the resume is that you definitely want to have it organized. So as far as like the order, I think order and organization go like hand in hand when we're talking about a resume, because you want to have it where the numbers on the side match up in the sense of like time, right? The time frame. I know, for instance, other people's times are different when you're listing them in the different areas. Maybe you did them at different times, but when you're in, let's say, a specific area like the professional experience or work experience, you definitely want to have it in order as far as like most recent uh, to your previous jobs, and then also as far as like the relevant coursework. As you can see, I really only had them dated for my work experience, but for the relevant coursework, um, that one, I know it's a little harder because you might have taken it sophomore year or junior year. Just doing the best you can to try to keep it in order. And if you find that it's difficult, you could also remove the dates for this and just keep it as relevant coursework to just make it that much easier. But definitely you want to have the dates for the work experience and the volunteer experience because they need to see when you worked last or when was your last work experience.
Great questions. And I wish we could have answered all of them live, but I did put some information in the chat. I put in the Santa Rosa Junior College job board link. So you don't have to necessarily be a student at the JC in order to go and check out some of the jobs at the JC job board. So make sure you look at that if you're looking. For the other workshops and panels tomorrow and Thursday, I also put the link to the ctesonomacountY.org/CareerFest. So check that out if you want to attend some of these other sessions, both the panels and the workshops like today. And I really want to thank Danny for participating in today's Finding a Job workshop. He did an awesome job and answered most questions. Thank you to everybody who attended. And please, again, check out the chat if you have a minute. Anything else, Danny, that?
Yeah, I mean, just going last on that question in order, I guess I didn't mention, like, maybe other people want to put education at the bottom like I did, right? It just really depends on like what format looks best for you and how you can present it.
Oh, good point.
Yeah, one of
Thank
the
you,
questions.
Melanie. That was really helpful to have you on the chat.
But
Yep.
other than that, yeah, I appreciate everybody. I hope that this was helpful. Once again, it was a quick run through, but if you have any questions, please reach out to us. Reach out to SAY, follow us on our Instagram. That's going to be the best place for resources and job postings. And yeah, I hope to see some of you at our workshops for this summer to get a job.
Yeah, your summer job program is amazing. I always refer my students there, so I'm just very happy that it'll be back. We can do it some more. Okay, thank you, everybody.
All right.